The last war dogs. The war was over. At least, that's what the Serothi told themselves. Their warships still hovered in low orbit above Morrow's reach, casting long shadows over the scorched colony ruins. Once a thriving human outpost, it was now just dust, craters, and the occasional cracked helmet half buried in ash. A single banner fluttered in the breeze, tattered but still legible: "Bite last, bite hard." Kelethvan, commander of the Dominion's Xeno-Behavioral Corps, stood on the observation deck of the lead cruiser. His long, silver-scaled arms rested behind his back. His expression, unreadable even to his own species, held a trace of something close to confusion. Below, cleanup teams retrieved wreckage and bodies, mostly human. The Serothi had expected resistance, yes. But they hadn't expected madness. Kelethvan activated the tactical recorder and played the final footage captured by a Dominion drone. The image stuttered to life. Grainy, blood-smeared soldiers crouched behind overturned terraforming rigs. Their armor was mismatched, patched with old world flags and hand-painted kill tallies. One of them, a tall, lean man with burned scars on his cheek, laughed as he was hit by shrapnel. "Pain's a signal," he yelled to his squad. "Not a stop sign." His comrades whooped and surged forward, firing recklessly. One dragged a wounded woman by her armor collar, grinning through blood-streaked teeth. Then a flash. White light. Feed cut. Keleth tilted his head. The humans had no coordination, no centralized command. And yet they pushed the Serothi defensive line harder than any other species had in 2 galactic cycles. They didn't retreat when flanked. They charged. They didn't surrender. They dared the enemy to come closer. He turned to his adjutant. "Statistical analysis?" Keleth asked. "Still processing," the adjutant replied. "Their combat behavior is nonlinear. Illogical." Keleth narrowed his eyes. "Emotionally driven?" "Yes, Commander. That, or chemically impaired." Keleth almost laughed. If Serothi were capable of it. He paced toward the data screen, bringing up post-battle analysis. There were signs of neuroenhancement among the humans, yes, but more than that, there was pattern to the chaos. Improvised tactics. Jokes mid-firefight. Insulting death cries. Soldiers running toward explosions. The data made no sense. The outcome, however, did. "Do we know what they called themselves?" he asked. The adjutant hesitated. Local chatter refers to the group as Last War Dogs. Keleth spoke the words aloud, slowly, testing the sound. A fitting name for a dying breed. He looked out the viewport again. But something gnawed at him. Not fear. His kind didn't feel fear. But something colder. He activated the deep telemetry reports, searching for human command cores, encrypted signals, evac beacons. Nothing. And that was the problem. Because humans didn't go quiet. Even in death, they made noise. And the Dominion hadn't heard the last of them. Not even close. One final log played on the command channel, translated from an old human officer's black box. It was short. Grainy audio. A woman's voice. Steady. If you're hearing this, it means we're dead. Doesn't matter. You already lost. You think we're irrational. Emotional. Primitive. And you're right. But that's what you never understood. We don't fight for order. We fight because we choose to. Even when we know it's hopeless. You didn't beat us. You reminded us who we are. There was silence. Then laughter. Cold. Defiant. So go ahead. Call us crazy. Just remember what we are when we bleed. We're blood-forged. The message ended. Kelethvan stood still for a long time. Then he turned to his adjutant and said, quietly, "Begin full system sweep. Every relay. Every shadow signal. I want to know if any of them got off this planet." "And if they did, Commander?" Keletha's dark eyes narrowed. "Then we will see how far madness spreads." Operation Hammer Vein. The Blood-Forged wasn't a ship. It was a scar that moved. Drifting through the cold dark just outside the Dominion surveillance grid, it looked more like a drifting husk than a war vessel. Its hull was pitted and jagged, patched with metal from half a dozen other wrecks. No smooth lines, no standard schematics, just brutal necessity. Armor from a downed colony hauler, engines from a mining rig, weapons stolen or cobbled together. It had no ID code, no allegiance, no logic, and that made it the most dangerous thing still breathing. Inside the command deck, Captain Sarah Holt stood with her hands clasped behind her back, staring at the screen as a Dominion Forge world rotated slowly in the distance just beyond the kill line. "Sensors are quiet," muttered Rook, her tactical officer, slouched in a half-broken chair. "We're still invisible, at least for now." Holt didn't answer immediately. Her short, dark hair was slicked back with grease and sweat. Her uniform, if it could be called that, was faded black, its sleeves rolled up to show forearms lined with neural ports and old scars. Like everyone on the Blood-Forged, she wasn't standard issue. Not anymore. "Any sign of movement near the lattice arc?" she asked. "Minimal," said Rook. "Automated patrols, one destroyer in low orbit. Standard defensive posture." "Which means they think we're gone." Rook smirked. "Let's prove them wrong." The crew had gathered in the armory, a wide chamber that doubled as their war room, mess hall, and med bay. Every wall was covered in weapons, many homemade or modded beyond regulation. The lighting flickered. A slow, steady thrum pulsed underfoot from the unstable core drive. At the front, Holt stood on a metal crate, holding a forged iron shard between her fingers. It was jagged, blackened at the edges, about the size of a blade tip. Blood was still drying on one side, her blood. She held it high. "This is what we are now. We are not a fleet. We are not an army. We are blood-forged. Every one of you made your vein, and you know what it means." The room fell into a heavy silence. This shard was hammered in fire, tempered in pain, cut from something old, and made into something new. That's what they don't understand. They think we broke. They think we scattered. But we came back hotter. Harder. She nodded to a table in the corner, where dozens of similar shards lay. Some glowed faintly. Some were dark, cracked, rusted. Each had a name etched into it. "Fallen soldiers." "Tonight we start Operation Hammer Vein," Holt continued. "We drop into orbit above Voth-Terra, the Dominion's primary forge world. The place where they mass-breed their biomechs, manufacture neural control hubs, and seed half their AIs." "Suicide mission," someone muttered. Holt looked toward the voice. A tech named Bryn. Young. Scared. Honest. "You're right," Holt said. "If we do it by their rules, it's suicide. But that's not how we play." She stepped off the crate and walked between them. "We're going to ghost in. Manual drop pods. No stealth tech. No comms. Just gut and aim. We land. We hit the control spire. We bleed into their systems. Literally, the virus works by neural imprint. And if we get lucky, we wake the whole Dominion up to the thing they fear most." "What's that?" Bryn asked. Holt smiled. "Us." There were no cheers. No chest-thumping speeches. Just nods. Gritted teeth. One by one, the soldiers stepped forward and pressed their forged vein shard into a central plate. It hissed and glowed. A quiet ritual. The kind that says, "I'm ready to die, and I'll make it count." Later, in the hangar bay, the drop pods clanked into launch position. Rook tightened his harness and cracked his neck. "You think they'll know what hit them?" he asked. Holt loaded her rifle, eyes on the launch light. "They already do," she said. "They just don't believe it yet." With a deep metallic groan, the Blood-Forged released its final weapons into the void. Human madness, sharpened into fury, hurled straight at the heart of a machine empire. To crack the cold gods. The drop was silent. No AI guidance. No automated stabilization. Just steel coffins falling through the void. Captain Holt's pod shuddered violently as it breached Voth-Terra's upper atmosphere. Heat flared across the viewing slit, painting everything outside in blazing orange. She clenched her teeth and held the vein shard tight in her gloved hand. The edges bit into her palm, anchoring her. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was the hum before violence. Her calm crackled once, Rook's voice. "See you in hell, Cap." Then static. Below them stretched the Dominion's pride, Voth-Terra, a planet of black metal and pulsing light. Not a city, not a factory, something between a hive and a machine god's temple. Towers the size of mountains churned out biomechs. Liquid data rivers flowed between domed nerve centers. Patrols of sleek synthetic drones zipped through the upper skies like insects guarding a hive. And in the center, like a single eye staring at the universe, the neural spire. That was the target. Holt's pod hit hard. Steel screamed, hydraulics blew, and the hatch burst open into blinding light. She rolled out onto metal plating and came up with her rifle leveled. Dominion servitors were already turning toward her, spindly, insectoid machines with no faces, just glowing blue masks and blade limbs. She fired first. Plasma rounds tore through the lead drone. The rest swarmed forward. "Go loud," Holt said, mostly to herself. "Time to make noise." Around her, other drop pods slammed into the deck like thunderclaps. One burst open and Rook came out sideways, still laughing even as he shot a drone mid-roll. "You always throw the best parties," he said. "Just help me crash it." The war began in seconds. Holt's team moved like a wildfire. No formations. No clean flanks. Just brutal, fast, instinct-driven combat. They weren't faster than the Serothi drones. They weren't stronger. But they were chaotic. They didn't react the way Dominion tacticals predicted. They ran toward gunfire. They played dead and exploded. One soldier used the broken limb of a dead drone to pry open a power cell and make an improvised bomb. Another was shot, twice, and laughed before setting himself ablaze to block a corridor. "Madness," a Dominion operator said from a tower above. Holt heard it piped through the HiveNet speakers. "You are madness given form." Holt kicked open a control room door and replied by tossing in a grenade. They reached the spire's lower levels in under 9 minutes. Bryn, the youngest, worked fast. He carried the payload, the neurovirus built from the minds of over 100 dead humans. Memories, screams, grief, joy, trauma, all distilled into raw, emotional code. "Hook it into the spine," Holt ordered. "No signal relays. Direct transfer." "Won't be clean," Bryn muttered, pulling out a line of neural teeth. "Might backflow. Might hit us, too." "Then scream through it," she said. "You were born in fire. You can take the burn." He nodded and began the upload. All across Vothterra, something shifted. The virus wasn't code in the traditional sense. It wasn't logical. It was feeling weaponized. It poured into the spire, hijacking Dominion neural relays and spreading through their hive consciousness like a storm. In one control tower, a Dominion overseer collapsed, clutching his chest. "What is this?" he gasped, images flooding his mind, a mother holding a dying child. A soldier choosing death over surrender. A boy with half a leg smiling as he passed a message along. All human. All painful. All real. "This isn't war," the overseer whispered. "This is humanity." More drones began to malfunction. Others turned on each other, overwhelmed by sensory overload. The skies above the forge world flickered as command signals fragmented. Rook leaned against a wall, blood running down his face. "We do it?" he asked. Holt looked up at the spire. The Dominion's perfect machine was screaming. "We did it," she said. "Now we just have to hold long enough for it to finish." Bryn collapsed from the neural feedback, trembling but breathing. Holt slung him over her shoulder and reloaded. "You still with me, Cap?" Rook asked, limping. She gave him a tired smile. "Always." In the chaos, surrounded by collapsing systems and crumbling logic, the humans stood unbowed. They had come into the cold heart of a machine empire not to destroy it with strength, but to poison it with humanity. And now, the cold gods were beginning to crack. Blood-forged, fire-born. Captain Sarah Holt knew the fortress was falling when the spire began to scream. Not metaphorically, literally. From deep within the Dominion's neural core, a high-frequency resonance tore through the air like a metal god howling in pain. The floor beneath her boots cracked. Sparks rained from ruptured conduits. And behind her, Rook grinned like he was watching the universe end and loving every second of it. "We did it," he rasped. His eyes were bloodshot. "We really did it." They had. But at a cost. Bryn was down. Unconscious, maybe worse. Half the squad was gone. And the vein shard Holt still clutched was vibrating with unnatural heat, like it knew something beyond reason had been unleashed. Holt didn't flinch. "Get ready," she said. "This isn't over. Not until we break orbit." She dragged Bryn's limp body toward the fallback corridor, Rook limping beside her, covering the rear. Smoke poured in through the shattered ventilation slits. Alarms in a dozen alien frequencies blared and then went silent, failing mid-cycle. Whatever governed this Forge world, it wasn't in control anymore. In the control towers above, Dominion Command personnel were either dead, convulsing, or fleeing. The viral payload the humans had unleashed wasn't just digital, it was emotional contagion. It spread like guilt, like grief, like memory. Unshielded minds were buckling under it. Images of sacrifice, pain, joy in defiance. Rage turned to hope. The kind of raw, illogical spirit no Dominion algorithm could process. The humans had not brought weapons. They had brought humanity, distilled and sharpened into a psychic virus. And now the machine gods were bleeding from it. Holt reached the exfil chamber and slammed the emergency bay door. Rook keyed in the last ignition sequence for the shuttle. 3 minutes to full launch. "That's assuming we don't get blown out of orbit," he said, coughing hard. "That's a big assumption." Holt laid Bryn out, checked his pulse. Faint, but steady. She looked through the viewport. Above, in the fractured sky of Voth-Terra, Dominion cruisers were beginning to crash into one another. Some fell, ablaze. Others floated dead, systems corrupted. The Forge reactors were flickering on and off, unable to decide if they should burn or shut down. She opened the long-range channel, encrypted through a modified human beacon frequency. "Blood forged to any surviving cells," she said. "The spire is broken. Repeat, the spire is broken. If you're alive, light your forge. Let em know we're not extinct. Not yet." She didn't expect a reply. But then, Blood Forged South node responding. "We read you. Operation Hammer Vein is a confirmed success." Another voice chimed in. "North Reach Pack still breathing. You crazy bastards actually did it." Then a third. "This is Ragged Dawn calling in from the Outer Rim. Your signal just woke our dead." More followed. One after another. Human rebel cells, scattered and silent for years, now stirring. Inspired. Reconnected by fire. Holt felt the pressure in her chest grow. Not fear. Not grief. Something older. Pride. "They'll come for us now," Rook said. "Harder than ever." "Let them," Holt replied. Outside, the Dominion war factories were collapsing in on themselves. Not through brute force, but through something deeper, corruption of purpose. The virus hadn't just attacked systems. It had inserted contradiction. Uncertainty. It made the Dominion doubt. And for a machine empire built on logic, doubt was death. The shuttle engines roared to life. Rook looked over at Holt. "You know we're legends now, right?" "No," she said. "We're examples." The shuttle rocketed upward, through burning skies and fractured clouds. Voth-Terra shrank below them, a god machine now coughing up blood and smoke. And as the stars opened above, Holt whispered her last words into the void. "To the next war dogs. Wherever you are. However you come. Let them call you insane." She held up her vein shard one last time, now blackened, heat-split, but whole. "Let them call you crazy. Because that's how they'll remember us. That's how we win." The stars didn't reply. But far away, across forgotten sectors and cold gulfs of silence, forge fires flickered back to life. Old transmitters woke. Rusted armor was cleaned. Names were spoken again. The humans were not gone. They were just getting started. They were blood-forged. And fireborn.